بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم والصلاة والسلام على رسوله الكريم. Or to talk today about Muawiyah radiallahu anhu. Whenever Muawiyah is mentioned, many Muslims have misgivings about him. A lot of it really. But we will see inshallah in the next hour or so that he achieved a lot for Islam. But to be fair as well, he made two major errors as well. Right? So let's go through both his good deeds and his errors as well. To start with, just something about him personally. At the conquest of Mecca, he was 23 years old. So he was about nearly 38 years younger than the Prophet ﷺ, the eighth year of Hijrah. He was the son of Abu Sufyan. Abu Sufyan became the leader of Mecca after the death or the killing of Abu Jahl at the Battle of Badr. He was the one who led the Battle of Uhud against the Muslims and the Battle of the Trench. That was the Battle of Uhud, the 3rd year of Hijri, the Battle of the Trench in the 5th year of Hijri. So he led two campaigns to conquer Medina, and he failed in both cases. Although he had some military success, but he didn't achieve what he came for in other cases, and that's destroy Islam. But saying that, unlike the other enemies of Islam in Mecca, he was never foul with the Prophet ﷺ. Never uttered one bad word about him, nor was he physically harmful to the Prophet ﷺ. Okay, so he was well-mannered. And although when he was a leader of Mecca, leader of all the Kafirs, he heard the news that his daughter, who already became Muslim before, his daughter Habiba, if you remember, Habiba bint Abi Sufyan, she was an early Muslim here, and her husband. She went to Abyssinia, Ethiopia today, with the first Hijrah, with her husband. Her husband converted to Christianity and soon afterwards died. Then she came straight to Medina because the Muslims have moved to Medina by then. And she felt very, very embarrassed that she gave up her religion, her family, for a man that didn't even recognize her religion. He left the religion altogether. So she felt very humiliated by the action of her husband. So to the Prophet ﷺ, she was a sahabiyya, a companion, right? And he loved them, all of them. And he wanted honor to all of them. So the best way to honor her, he made her his wife, right? So she moved from the Kafir house to the Prophet's house, the best house. When Abu Sufyan heard about this, he was in Mecca and he was at the time fighting the Prophet ﷺ. He was told, people want to humiliate him. Muhammad married your daughter. He said, well, I have no regrets to that. He's the most honorable man in Arabia anyway. Right? That's how honest the man was, Abu Sufyan. Abu Sufyan and his two sons, Yazid, older than Muawiyah, and Muawiyah became Muslims at the conquest of Mecca. Although Muawiyah said, from the day of Sulh al-Hudaybiyah, in the year 6 Hijri, I accepted Islam, but I kept it secret because at that time Muslims could not, after the Hijrah of Muslims from Mecca to Medina, the Muslims who stayed there, they did not show off their Islam because they would have been killed or persecuted badly. So I was secretly Muslim. But many people say we only knew him Muslim from the year 8 of Hijrah. But from the first day he became Muslim, then actions upon actions non-stop for the next 40 years. For the next 40, from the year nearly 10 Hijri till the year 60s, 50 years, 52 years of actions, all for Islam. First thing is, he moved to Medina. He used to write. He was literate. So the Prophet ﷺ gave him 2 tasks, not 1. First, he made him join the company of the scribes. We said the Prophet ﷺ had up to 40 scribes writing the Quran for him. Not all of them writing everything at the same time, but whoever available, 1, 2, whatever. So Muawiyah was one of the scribes. Plus, he made him his personal secretary. He used to write the letters for the Prophet ﷺ. Whenever the Prophet sent a letter, either to local kings or chiefs or his commanders, Muawiyah was his scribe. He would write the letters for him. So that means how much the Prophet ﷺ trusted him. But the Prophet was illiterate. He could have written anything, right? So that is what he did. And then he joined straight away from 1 or 2 days after he became Muslim, he joined the Battle of Hunain. Remember the Battle of Hunain when the Muslims were ambushed and then they fled and then they come back and they won and Allah forgive them. So he jihad from the first day. Then the Prophet's secretary and the Prophet's scribe. Then when the Prophet ﷺ died, he was one of those who, with his brother, went and fought his brother Yazid, fought the renegades, حروب الردة, the Murtaddin in Arabia. That lasted from Rabi'ul Awwal till Dhul Hijjah. That is 9 months of fighting the Murtaddin till they brought back all of Arabia. As soon as the wars finished, Abu Bakr sent the armies to Syria and to Iraq. Iraq to find the Persians and Syria to fight the Romans. The Syrian army consisted of 4 separate groups, but they went together but different areas of Syria. One of them was one of the leader of the armies. There were 4 armies: Abu Ubaidah, Sharhabil ibn Hassan, Abu Ubaidah for north of Syria, Sharhabil ibn Hassan for Jordan, that's south of Syria. All of this was called Syria as well at that time. Amr ibn As for Palestine, that's west of Syria. And Yazid ibn Abi Sufyan, the brother of Muawiyah, to be in charge of Damascus, conquer Damascus, and that was his area. That's central Syria. The overall leader of all those armies were Abu Ubaidah radiallahu anhu. Abu Ubaidah died of plague 2-3 years after, not during Abu Bakr time, during Umar time. More than 2-3 years, about year 18 Hijri, 6 years after the death of, 5 years after the death of Abu Bakr. Then Abu Bakr appointed Yazid as the overall leader of the Syrian campaign. Yazid soon died after as well. Then, not Abu Bakr, Umar, sorry, that's Umar. Then Umar appointed Muawiyah. So from the year 18 till the year 41, 23 years, he was the governor of Syria. And then from the year 41 till the year 60, he was the king of Syria and the king of all Arabia, all Muslim land at the time. So he used to say, I ruled Syria or Sham 40 years, 20 years as a governor, 20 years as a ruler. He never used the word king for himself. He ruled Syria, we said, for 40 years, give or take 1 or 2 years. 40 years, it was a large area, and he made it much larger. 40 years, he brought tranquility and peace to Syria. There was, throughout his ruling, no uprising, no problems with the people there. There were a lot of problems in Iraq, few problems, quite few in Egypt, none in Yemen. Mainly, actually, Egypt and Iraq were causing problems, but mainly Iraq, really. Egypt, 2-3 problems were sorted out. But Iraq was continuing problems. But throughout his rule for 40 years, Syria was calm. When he became ruler of Syria, he went into action straight away. Action means he took his responsibility to progress rather than day-to-day rulings. The Prophet ﷺ made few dua regarding Muawiyah, specifically for Muawiyah. He said, What's the beginning of the hadith? Allahumma allimhu hisab. Where is it? Where's the hadith? This beautiful hadith really. Just there's one hadith. The Prophet ﷺ said, Allahumma ja'alhu hadiyan, mahdiyan, wahdi bihi. Oh Allah, make him a guide, a guided one, and make people guided through him. In another hadith, the Prophet ﷺ said, there will be khilafah, with mercy. There will be a nubuwah with mercy, prophethood with mercy, followed by khilafah with mercy, followed by monarchy with mercy, as the Prophet ﷺ saying. In another hadith, there will be khilafah on the same mythology as the prophethood. It will be followed by monarchy with some oppression, and then after that it will be dictatorship with a lot of oppression. There is no contradiction between the two hadiths, because Muawiyah's time was khilafah with rahmah, with mercy, but the ones who followed him, they were hard, getting worse all the time, to be honest. Abdullah ibn Abbas was the Ali ibn Abi Talib's first cousin. Al-Abbas and Abdul Muttalib were brothers. Abdullah ibn Abbas was very, very close to Ali ibn Abi Talib. He stood by him all the time. He was slightly older than Hassan and Hussein. But when they grew up and when Ali was the Khalifa and they were now in their late 20s and early 30s, Ali used to have his dinner or supper one day at Al-Hassan's house, one day at Al-Hussein's house, one day at Ibn Abbas' house. And Abdullah Abbas stood by Ali till the last day. That's how close he was. He fought with him all his wars. He was his envoy. He was his right-hand man, really. Okay, so Abdullah ibn Abbas, look what he said about Muawiyah. That's Abdullah ibn Abbas after Ali died. Abdullah ibn Abbas said he was worse than the people before him. He meant Abu Bakr, Umar, Uthman, and Ali. But he was better than the people who came after him, which is true. We never had anyone since Muawiyah as good as Muawiyah. Abdullah ibn Abbas said something else about him. He said he was a faqih. At that time means he was a scholar. That's the words of Abdullah ibn Abbas. Right. He is actually not a very far distant cousin of the Prophet ﷺ. If we look at their fathers, the father of the Prophet Muhammad ﷺ was Abdullah. His grandfather, Abdul Muttalib. His grandfather was Hashim. Then Hashim's father was Abd Manaf. So the fourth grandfather of the Prophet ﷺ is Abd Manaf. If we look at Muawiyah, his father was Harb. Abu Sufyan was his title. Harb's father was Umayyah. Umayyah's father was Abd Shams. And number 4 again, Abd Manaf. So within the 4 grandfather they meet. So the Prophet's grandfather, Abu Talib, Abdul Muttalib, and Muawiyah's grandfather, Umayyah, were first cousins. So they were not far from each other. Right. Muawiyah ruled Syria, and now he started work straight away. First, he was very fair. One day when he was writing to the Prophet, very close to the Prophet, he was pouring water for the Prophet for wudu. The Prophet ﷺ said to him, as if he felt that he's going to be leader one day. He said to him, "O Muawiyah, if you become in charge of the Muslims one day, fear Allah and be fair." And Muawiyah was fair. During Uthman time, the people were complaining about the governors. Actually, even during Umar time, they were complaining. But during Uthman time, they were complaining more with some justifications. So Ali said to Uthman, "Why don't you remove him?" He said, it was Umar who appointed him. He said, "But he used to fear Umar more than you." He said, "Okay, let me check." So what Uthman did, because he was getting too many complaints, he sent not spies, but people to investigate to every province. He sent people to see, are my governors as bad as people say? And all the reports came back, it was all lies. Only few people complaining, but the majority of people are happy with your governors. You see, this is, people always think that the governors of Uthman were a bunch of thieves and corrupt people. They were not actually. But the people themselves were bad. That is why they didn't see what's the goodness of this. So Muawiyah started now working, not only being fair, to improve the welfare of the people. He made fair distribution of the land. He ordered them to dig wells, do irrigations, and he introduced records. He had so many records upon records of all the Muslims throughout the state. So he was busy all the time making people's life better. One of his qualities was he was known as being forbearing, Halim in Arabic, Halim. Forbearing means lenient, calm, forgiving, but without weakness. These were all his character. One day, he said, between me and the people, there is a hair. If they pull it, I release it. And if they release it, I pull it. I never break it. He liked showing off and dressing well and eating well and having luxury of this life. But he wasn't a munafiq. The way he did live, when in the presence of Umar, he did the same. So because he knew Umar was the Khalifa and he had his tobe with many patches. No, he would just dress exactly in the presence of Umar or away from Umar. One day, even he came to Medina with green clothes. Arabs never wear green clothes, something very flashy clothes. So he didn't hide it in Syria and they say, "I'll go to Umar and pretend to be impious." No, he wasn't, none of the Sahaba were either hypocrite or a liar. So Umar went to them with a stick and hit him very hard, really. And the Sahaba asked him, "Why are you hitting him?" He said, "Just in case he likes his suit and he thinks it give him some pride. So I'm just putting him in his place." But he never said to him, "Take it off." Even in Syria, when he visited him, he saw him wearing very soft, expensive clothes with a procession. So what is this? I told you the story last time. What's this? I mean, usually people, hypocrites, weak people would pretend to be different. No, Muawiyah didn't. None of the Sahaba did ever, really. They were great people, really. He said, "Look, we are living close to the Romans, and those Romans are impressed with our outfit and with our appearance. If we look poor, if we look simple, they will always attack us. They think we are weak." Umar said to him, "Whenever I come to you from one way, you find a way out. Just leave me alone and go." He said, "If you want me, I'll give up all this." He said, "I will not ask you to give it up, nor I'll ask you to keep doing it. It's your choice." So this is how Umar radiallahu anh, always loved to have intelligent people around him. I mean, there was another one just as shrewd as him, Amr ibn al-As radiallahu anh, even shrewder than him, very, very intelligent man. And the one who conquered Egypt. Whenever Umar saw a simple man, He used to say, Subhanallah, the creator of this man and the creator of Amr ibn al-As one. That means Allah has got so much varieties from 0 IQ to probably 200 IQ, right? Now, other than what he did in Syria, that's the reforms of the land and being fair to everybody, Muawiyah as well, he was far-sighted. He noticed that sailing or having a navy gives you a military advantage. So you could move, you know, ship moves hundreds of miles a day because it travels non-stop, doesn't it? While people only travel 20 miles a day, especially armies. That's standard distance that the armies covered in the past, 20 miles. Anyway, so he suggested to Umar having fleet. Umar refused. Uthman agreed and put the condition that you got to be on it and your wife in the first one, which he did. He had some success. He took it much further. He made 4 Muslim cities on the coast of Syria and Egypt, 1 in Egypt and 3 in Syria and Palestine, shipyards to make ships. Within a few years, the Muslims had 1,700 ships. That's not bad, from 0 ships to 1,700. During his time, the Muslims conquered Cyprus, Sicily, Crete, and they were the masters of the Mediterranean. That's within a few years. Took the Romans 200-300 years to do that. All right, so all the merits of Muslim navies goes to him. And the Prophet ﷺ said, the first army that conquers the sea from my ummah will be forgiven. And that was his first army. He tried to conquer Istanbul itself. All Muslim leaders from Muawiyah time till Muhammad Fatih time tried to conquer Istanbul for the single reason that the Prophet ﷺ praised the army that conquers it. So everyone wished that, because I mean that's a guaranteed Jannah. When the Prophet praised you, it means Jannah. You can't be praised and then go to hell. So Muawiyah tried. By land, he couldn't. So he tried by sea with his ships. He couldn't, but he caused the Romans to withdraw all the time and to be under pressure. He kept the Romans under pressure. So they never thought of coming back to Syria. Not only that, he followed them into what's now Turkey, was their heartland, up to Ankara. That means he took half of Turkey from them. So people think that he was quiet there and doing nothing. No, was expanding all the time. His armies spread in the west as well. Up to Uthman time, we said they reached to the Muslim reached the borders now between Tunisia and Libya. During the Muawiyah time, they went all the way to North Africa, and not only small coastal area. No, they were going deep into Africa as well. They were not leaving the cities, the towns, the people, the populated areas, and then they spread Islam and Arabic language. Throughout Muawiyah, wherever the Muslim conquered, they spread Arabic language as well as religion. That's at that time Persia used to speak Arabic. Persia only changed 500 years ago. And north of Syria, south of Turkey, north of Africa didn't know Arabic. They all became Arabic speakers. Right? So in the east, we said during Uthman time, they conquered north of Afghanistan. In Muawiyah's time, they went east to what is now Multan and Sindh, the western part of India.
Pakistan.
Huh?
Multan and Sindh, Pakistan.
Yes, not Pakistan now. I'm saying that, but it was West India at the time. People used to call at that time India two names, a Sindh and the Hind. Sindh and India. That's the Arabs used to divide India into Sindh. So the western part of India now, which is Pakistan now, not all of Pakistan, not all of the Punjab, but part of the Punjab as well as part of the Sindh. But they expanded, right? Plus a little bit to the north, plus to keep all that land. That's an achievement in itself. They expanded more on Africa as well. So, right. That's his military achievement, were a lot really, as I said, everywhere. The reforms, But again, there was the problem of Uthman and the death of Uthman and the problem of the Khilafah of Ali. These were two big problems that he had to deal with. We don't know why he did not go for the help of Uthman. We don't know really. Although there was a lot of reports that although Uthman was his first cousin, and he was supporting him, and he asked for his revenge for his blood. I don't know, but many reports that there was a Syrian army coming to help Uthman. There was the Iraqi army, the Egyptian army. Nobody appeared at all, really. We don't know the reasons why. But then the war with Ali, that was one of the negative aspects there, that because we all love Ali, and we know how all good was Ali, etc. So all the Muslims, with a lot of justifications, really, they take the side of Ali. Never mind the Shia. The Shia don't take the side of anybody, really. They pretend. They don't really. We are the ones who love Ali, and we are the ones who know that Ali was right and Muawiyah was wrong. Right? We admit this, and we do not find any justification for that or excuses. Simple as that. Right? He should have given the bay'ah to Ali. That was a big mistake that he has made. And his second mistake was that he did not help Uthman. Again, he should have done that. But other than that, yeah, the second actually mistake what he made, we'll come to this later, is the appointment of his son Yazid. But let's come to this after that.
How long, Sheikh?
Yes.
How long would it have taken him to send his army from Damascus to Medina when the people, enemies of Uthman, were there?
About 20 days.
Right.
20 days to 30 days. He could have done that.
But
even if they were arrived late, still it was worth it.
You didn't try.
Well, you see, we don't know what happened. The people say, he never said, I've sent an army for him. People say that time, the people of Medina were receiving news that there were 3 armies coming towards Medina, 2 from Iraq and 1 from Syria. That is why the rebels, who as soon as they killed Uthman, Uthman, as soon as they killed him, they wanted a Khalifa straight away to save them from a war, because they knew they'll lose. So they wanted either Ali, Zubayr, or Talha. They wanted one of those. Not one of them, because they knew they would not be accepted. So why the 3 armies didn't arrive, we don't know. Then why the war with Ali as well? As I said, we find it not acceptable. Right? Now, other than this, the way he ran his country as well, the Muslim state. Now, once he made the peace with Al-Hassan in the year 41 Hijri, if you remember, in Ramadan, that's when 17 Ramadan was the death of Ali radiallahu anhu. 6 months after, which about Jamad al-Awwal or Rabi' al-Thani, that time, Al-Hassan gave up and he made peace with him. That peace that Al-Hassan made with Muawiyah again gave legitimacy to Muawiyah, because the Prophet ﷺ said, this son of mine, was pointing at Hassan when he was a young man, was a boy, is a Sayyid, is a master, and Allah will make it up on his hands between 2 great groups of my ummah. Right? So the person did not say he's going to make it up between Muslims and Munafiqeen, between sinners and good people. He said he will make it up between 2 great portions of my ummah. So this again, indirect praise of Muawiyah from the Prophet ﷺ. although, as I said, there were some direct praises of him as well. Just some examples of how he was forbearing, just to see, because this is what was probably one of his most outstanding character. When he was in Medina, a young man, his early 20s, with the Prophet ﷺ, a man called Wa'il ibn Hujr. He was a local king in somewhere in South Arabia. He became Muslim, he came to Medina. The Prophet ﷺ asked Muawiyah, he said, take him to the house of Abdullah ibn Rawaha. Abdullah ibn Rawaha was the leader of the army that went in the battle of Mu'tah in the year 8 Hijri. And he was killed, as well as Ja'far al-Tayyar, as well as Zayd ibn Haritha. Abdullah ibn Rawaha already was dead at the time, because that is, we're talking about now year 9 or 10 Hijri. But his house, he said to him to his house. He had probably a large house and his sons and big family there. The house was a bit far from the mosque and it was very hot. That Arab king, that Wa'il, was sitting on a camel, riding a camel. So Muawiyah said, it's very hot, I can't even walk, and he was barefooted. Can I ride behind you? He said, how can you ride behind the king? You're only a commoner. He's a new Muslim, this guy, right? So he said, can I borrow your shoes then? How can you wear a king's shoes? Then he felt sorry for him and said, but you could walk by the shade of my camel, right? 40 years after, what was the year 10 Hijri, about the year 50 Hijri, etc., Muawiyah was the king in Syria now. This Wa'il came to visit him. He recognized him. He welcomed him. He didn't have a throne, but he had a large chair, large armchair, Muawiyah. So he asked him to sit next to him. That man sat next to him, and then he knew, remember what he did with him. He said, do you remember what I did to you in Medina when you were a young man? He said, yes, but I have to respect you because you are a king. Right? This is how, okay. That's how, the man was Halim. That's Halim, very, very forbearing. There was a man called Maswar ibn Mukhrama. Maswar ibn Mukhrama was a young Sahabi, very, very loyal to Ali, radiallahu anhu. Very loyal. Again, like Abdullah ibn Abbas, like Hazrat Hussein, stood by Ali all the time. Ali was killed. Then one day he visited Damascus. Muawiyah invited him, and he knew that this man hated Muawiyah's guts. He insisted he came to him to his house or to his palace. He said to him, tell me about Ali. He said, please, don't ask me this question. He said, I insist, tell me about Ali. He said, what shall I tell you about a man who was to pray, he used to pray all night, read Quran all night, do either jihad or look after the affairs of Muslims all day, pious, pure-hearted, intelligence. There is nobody like him. He said, how do you feel after his death? Or when you heard that he died? He said, like a mother who had her baby in her hand and somebody slaughtered the baby for her. Muawiyah said, now tell me, you talk about me now. What do you think of me? He said, no, I'm not saying anything. He said, you must. He said, no, please leave me. He said, you must say it. He said, okay, there is nothing good about you. See, that's the Sahaba. They were honest. There's no lies, no hypocrisy. He said, there is nothing good about you. I mean, he could have killed him. He's a king and get away with it. Or humiliated him. He said, nothing good about you. He said, Musawwar, do you have sins between you and yourself? There are sins that you wish Allah to forgive you. He said, yes, of course I have. He said, what makes you think that Allah will only forgive your sins and will not forgive mine? Am I not one of Allah's creation? I know I made many things wrong, but did I not do jihad fi sabilillah and spread Islam east, west, north, and the sea? Did I not enlarge Muslim land? Did I not conquer the sea? Did all these are worth nothing for you? Do you not think Allah will give me some merits for this? Why would He give you and not give me? That man said, yeah, you are right. That man left. Till the time of his death, he only spoke well of Muawiyah, right? He only spoke well of him. And this is what we all should do, really, right? His achievements are a lot. We cannot dismiss them through what he did, one of the big things, but he still, that's achievement. I mean, it lasted forever. I mean, it was his family, the Umayyad, that conquered Spain and spread Islam there for 800 years. Again, his family that went to China, spread Islam. Right? So we cannot dismiss him at all. Radiallahu anhu, Muawiyah. There's another nice story about him. Yes. Abdullah ibn Zubayr was a hot-headed young man, very powerful, like his father. Zubayr, the son of Safiya, the auntie of the Prophet ﷺ. Allah Zubayr, now in his 30s or early 40s, he had a big land in Iraq when Muawiyah was the leader and throughout the Muslim world now. Muawiyah had adjacent land to it. So one day, Abdullah ibn Zubayr wrote a letter to Muawiyah. He said to him, your land is next to mine. Your servants and your slaves are transgressing, entering my land, taking the water, causing problem with my workers. You better sort them out or else. A threatening letter. Abdullah ibn Zubayr had many followers, and plus in Iraq you can always find 1 million followers, and at the same time when you need them you will not find anybody. So he took the letter and called his son Yazid. He said, what should we answer Abdullah ibn Zubayr? He said, I think we should send him an army that starts in Iraq and ends up in here. It means millions. He said, get the paper and the pen. He got them. He wrote to Abdullah ibn Zubayr, I received your letter. It's a threatening letter. And this is my reply. My land is your land, including the servants and the slaves. It's all yours. And he said to his son, if you are afflicted by this disease, this is the type of medicine you use for it. See, by giving the land to Abdullah ibn Zubayr, what he did, he gained the land is still his, he's the king, and Abdullah ibn Zubayr and his land. See, if he needs now someone to fight with him, he'll take Abdullah ibn Zubayr, his slaves and his servants to fight for him. It's all become his. See, this is the way a king is looking at it. Not what can he do from the land other than eating a little bit of fruits probably, and just saying it is mine. You can't take it with you to the grave or to heaven. Anyway, this is how he used to deal with people. Now, amongst the treaty that he made with the close of the treaty with Hassan was that there will be no retaliations. Everybody will be forgiven. And all the people of Ali and Hassan and all those who took the side of Ali, they will be treated equally and have equal allowances like everybody in the Muslim world, in the Muslim states, their respect, etc. And Muawiyah agreed to this. Plus you get to give us hundreds of thousands every year, me and my brothers and my cousins. Muawiyah agreed. Whenever Hassan and Hussein came to Damascus, and they used to visit him frequently. Every now and then, they visit him a few times, not frequently. Whenever they visit him, he used to receive them well and give them each 300,000 pounds. I don't know how much is it worth in our money. And he used to give them special treatment. Even his son felt. He said, I noticed you have more respect for Hassan than you have for me. He said, your mother is an ordinary woman. His mother is Fatima. You cannot compare. I cannot compare you with Hassan. He's talking about his own son, right? So really for 20 years, although Hassan died 8 years after Hussein lasted the 20 years, only respect that they could see. Now there are rumors that they used to curse Ali on the members, etc. It's a lie. There was some cursing of Ali, but I'll tell you where from. But not officially, because would you expect Al-Hassan al-Hussein to go to a king who's cursing them on the members, cursing their father, and take few pounds from him? Would you do it yourself? Would you take any money from someone who give you some money and then in the mosque he's cursing your father? And what's about Hassan Hussein? No, that didn't happen. Who was cursing Ali? Let's be frank. There is many Muslims dismiss it altogether, which is not true. And some others, especially the Shia, they say they were cursing Muawiyah, Ali on the members for the next 60, 70 years, which is not true as well. They were cursing for Ali and they were cursing for Muawiyah. Who? Those who lost their relatives in the war between them. That's all. And there were thousands of them. Natural people swearing at those who caused the trouble. The Muawiyah side were swearing at Ali's side, at Ali in particular, because he was the leader. But those are common people. In the Islamic history, there isn't a Muslim scholar, and there was a lot of writing scholars, there isn't a single Muslim scholar who wrote an ill word of Ali radiallahu anhu or swore at him. Some criticize him, but that's allowed because he's not a prophet. Anything below the prophet, even people criticize Abu Bakr, Umar, Uthman, you could disagree with some of his actions. You cannot disagree with any action of the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam. Always have to put distinction between Allah and his messenger, between his messenger and people. Okay, there's things that is allowed for the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam, it's not allowed for Allah. There's things that allowed for the messenger of Allah, not allowed for the messenger, but allowed for lower people. You could criticize, but anyway, but swearing, speaking ill of them, lying about them, not a Muslim, single Muslim Sunni book that mentions one bad word about Ali radiallahu anhu. As I said, only criticism of his action, should have done this instead of that. Even Al-Hassan disagreed with him. Few people, that's nothing wrong with it. It's all with politeness and with good intention. But so this swearing thing is not true. That the word he was so. I said individually, probably somebody doing it in the mosque. Muawiyah could not control everybody, but he never himself ever swore at him. Right? Otherwise, Hassan Hussein would not have approached him at all. And they didn't need his few pounds or whatever he was giving them. Right? Now, don't remember to say anything. Now, coming towards the end of his life, he started thinking about who should come after him. And he thought of his son Yazid. Although that was not the agreement between him and Hassan. The agreement between Hassan will accept you as our leader, the sole leader, but after you should go back to Mashura, consultation with the Muslims. He agreed to that. But for some reason, he thought about it, and he thought if we could probably, I don't want to give him excuse, but probably my own analysis, he didn't want to start another arguments that could erupt into a war between the Muslims. He chose his son Yazid. Now, the Shia have wrote so many things about Yazid. He was a drunkard. He was a womanizer. He was. It's all lies. I'm not defending Yazid. He was a horrible man. One of the worst men in Islamic history. But we as Muslims, we as Sunnis, whatever we say, it has to be backed up by facts. That's why we have Sahih Bukhari and Sahih Muslim. Other religions in the whole world, no Shia, no Hindus, no Christians, they don't have Sahih Bukhari or similar thing. They don't have authentic books. You see, they don't. Even their holy books are not authentic. Nobody's got authentic books other than the Muslim, the Sunnis, the whole world. This is Allah give us tawfiq, the hidayah to justify, not to justify, to verify our history. That's it. Verify this man heard from this man, and all these people were trustworthy, honest, good memory, good teachers. Good. I mean, that's only this in the Muslim human history. There's nobody has written history like that, because Hadith is a history, really. Right? Hadith is a history, and this is history that the Muslims have made that is authentic. So in our history, there is nowhere says. I mean, somebody came to. I think to Abdullah ibn Abbas or somebody, a friend of Ali. He said to him, no, somebody came to Muhammad ibn Hanafiya, the son of Ali. Yeah, son of Ali. So again, very close to Ali he was. Not from Fatima. Muhammad from Hanafiya, his mother from Bani Hanifa, from another Arab tribe. After the death of Fatima, Ali married 4 women. And they had many sons with them. Many of them died in Karbala. 12 sons and grandsons of Ali died in the Battle of Karbala, of Ali. But coming back to this Muhammad ibn Hanafiya, again, he was very close to his father and very great man as well. So somebody said to him, Yazid used to drink. Or he said to him, you either were drinking with him or you are lying. How would you know somebody drink, isn't it? Because if he drank in public, everybody would know it, isn't it? As simple as this. If you know something, if you know secret, he says he either was drinking with him or you are lying. And the man had no answer. So he wasn't drunkard. Right. Why he chose him? Wallahi, I've been looking for the answer for this for 30 years. Why did you choose? Because he wasn't good, to be honest. He wasn't. Why did he choose him? At that time, they were in his own family better people than him, other than his son. He only had one son. He had a few daughters, but only one son. Why did you choose Yazid? I was thinking, I couldn't find answer till about 4 or 5 years ago. Something happened in Saudi Arabia. You know, most of the Saudi kings, probably except King Faisal, are corrupt. We all know that, isn't it? The whole family is corrupt, really, right? But King Faisal was exceptional.
He's a good man, good Muslim.
Sorry?
He was a good Muslim, mashallah.
Yes, he was good Muslim, mashallah, good Muslim, and he paid for it with his life. King Faisal.
That's why they killed him, because he was a good Muslim.
Yeah, true. But a few years ago, another good king came to Saudi Arabia. Honestly, as good as King Faisal, and that's King Sulaiman, King Salman. King Salman. I mean, as you can see, I'm not a lover of the Saudis, okay? No good Muslim would love the Saudi corrupt family, as simple as this, right? As someone loves them, then there's some interest, personal interest or stupidity or something wrong there. Because they are corrupt. Why would we love corrupt Muslim leaders who affect the future of generations of Muslims? King Salman was a great man. From the first day he came, he was in his early 80s. That was about 6 years ago. The first day he became king, he got rid of a lot of corrupt people who were around King Abdullah before him. And then there was a lot of freedom for Muslim scholars. They start speaking up, supporting Morsi loudly in Saudi Arabia. Now, if you support Morsi, you go to prison or you could get killed. Supporting Morsi, supporting the Arabic Spring. It was a lot of freedom for the Islamists that they've never experienced before. He was very anti-Israel. He made the biggest or the only ever Islamic military maneuvers. Some 17, 20 Muslim countries came to Saudi Arabia and they had maneuvers that frightened the hell out of America, Russia, and Israel, right? And wherever that man went, Salman, from Indonesia to Malaysia, he didn't go to Pakistan, unfortunately, but he went to Jordan, Egypt, Morocco, wherever he went, he was received by the people as a hero. People could feel we've got a good man. And that man made the same mistake as Muawiyah did. He appointed his son as his crown prince, Muhammad. Now, when he appointed Muhammad, right, for 2 years, I was listening to what Muhammad, this Prince Muhammad, was saying. To be honest, I admired him. The man was going to sort out Israel, Iran, the economy of the country. He was saying within 2-3 years, we will not depend on petrol anymore. The petrol will finish. We will have proper economy. We will not have corruption. There was the things he was saying, this Muhammad bin Salman. I said, Alhamdulillah, at last we're going to have a young Saudi leader who'll last, because all the leaders come from their 80s plus. Muhammad bin Salman took him 2 years to establish himself, got rid of his father and all the good Saudis, and left around him the worst corrupt people, and he is just another Yazid. Right? Really. For 2 years, I'm telling you, he showed that he was just like his father. Whatever his father said, he was echoing, talking about economy, about the treasures of Saudi Arabia other than the petrol, opening Mecca and Medina to the whole Muslims throughout the year. So many programs, right? Modernizing the country, and then came out to be most corrupt, more corrupt, just as bad as the Sisi, this boy. I think that's what happened with Yazid. During his father's time, he kept a low profile and gave the impression he was a good man. And that's why his father, the only thing I can, my own analysis, why would such a good man, I mean, if you ask Salman now is senile, he's too old. So, and he doesn't rule actually, you don't see him anymore. He can't even talk. When he talks, he murmurs, you can't understand him. He aged very quickly. That's why his son took over. And actually, he had, just one final thing about this King Salman, he had a very loyal bodyguard, 2 bodyguards, this King Salman. Religious, educated, well-trained, commandos. They were exceptional, really, right? This Ibn Salman killed them, both of them. They were in their 40s. Because probably they were telling his father what's happening in Saudi Arabia. Anyway, coming back to Muawiyah, that's what matters. I think because Yazid, during his father time, did not show any bad side of his, right? And that's probably, he was fooled by his son. He thought he was a good son. And he thought by making his son the Khalifa, this will will clear the atmosphere from the possibility of disputes, because the Muslims had a lot before that. For 5 or 6 years before Muawiyah, there were civil wars. In one war, the 10,000 in the Battle of Camel, 30,000 in the Battle of Siffin, many thousand after that on Ali's sides. So probably to avoid all this, he thought his son, who smiled in his father's face, probably he prayed in the mosque 5 times like him. But finally, Muawiyah's, I must mention this, very important, a day in the life of Muawiyah, radiallahu anhu. Muawiyah used to pray 5 times a day in the mosque, the 5 daily prayers, right? All his life. He would start with the Fajr Salah in the mosque, pray Fajr. After Fajr, he sit down and read Quran. After he reads Quran, his inner family, not cousins, children, grandchildren, brothers, sisters, whatever, come to visit him, to see him. Then he has breakfast. After that, he meets the chief police officer, like the head of intelligence, who was in charge of the security throughout the country. He will listen to him and give him a report. because he's always aware that just in case something goes wrong here and there. Did you miss that, Dr. Salim?
No, the battery was low. I just plugged it.
All right. So he would meet the chief police officer the first thing after, that's his first item on his agenda, on his daily agenda. Meet his officer, chat with him, talk about the security of the whole country. Then after that, he meet the judges, either from Damascus or the judges who came from far away, from different cities, to see him, that they had problem they couldn't solve, to do something probably with the properties of the state, or a problem they found it too big for them. If any judge has a problem, he want to see the Khalifa, he would travel to Damascus or send somebody. So he again have a meeting for all those judges to see him. After the judges, he meet the governors who wanted to visit him. He had many governors. Some used to travel, but every day probably there's one or two of them, or envoys from the governors giving him messages. So the governors after the judges. After that, he will meet an open door to the people who had grievances and they couldn't sort it out, either with the police or with the judges or with the governors, whether Damascus or throughout the Muslim world. If they couldn't solve the problem, they'll travel to there. They know the door is open. So these people will come to him and he will meet them and listen to them. All the other meetings are recorded, by the way. He always had someone recording. Muawiyah, the man, was recording, always recording. But especially when those who come with special grievances. So he would listen to the man and then tell him what should be done. And that man is recording. And then he said to the man who's his secretary, send a man with him to make sure that he gives him his rights. So a man will travel with that oppressed man to wherever it is in the Muslim world and sort on the, or as a special envoy of Muawiyah. Let me see if I missed something else from Mufi. Yes, other meeting he has is with the dignitaries of the Muslim world. Whoever want to see him, the chief of tribe, chief of localities, representative people, again, he has a meeting for them. So I had a meeting with his chief officer, with the judges, with the grievances, with the governors, and with the dignitaries who overcome. That will take him, plus during that time, he'll have his lunch, he'll sleep before Zuhur. That will take him till Isha time. He'll pray Isha. After Isha, there is a man who comes to him and read for him some pages from the books of history of other kings, non-Muslim kings. There was no Muslim kings. He tells me the stories of the kings. He used to enjoy those stories, and that was the end of Muawiyah's day. And then Muawiyah died in the year 60 Hijri, in Rajab 60 Hijri. Right. This is what Muawiyah's achievements, and that's I remember what I brought in about him. Let me see if there is anything else I missed. Yes, this was one thing actually. He said one day, look, and that's only the final. He said, I am not the best amongst you, but I am the best for you. The way he talks, nobody else can talk really. When he speaks, he leaves you no way to answer anything, right? So I'm not the best amongst you, but I'm the best for you. But before he died, he did get the bay'ah for his son, really. Most of the Sahaba have died by now, but there were still some young Sahabas like Abdullah bin Umar, Abdullah bin Zubayr, Abdullah bin Abbas, Abdullah al-Hussein, al-Hassan already died. And the Shia said that Muawiyah poisoned him. Why did he poison him? What for? He caused him no problems. Then why did he not poison his son as well, his brother? I mean, why? It's just silly thing to say. Why? There's no other, but they say he poisoned him. And then actually they say all the 12 Imams were poisoned by the Sunnis. If you read their books, every single Imam was poisoned because it's something which you cannot prove, right? So
they say Imam Hassan's wife poisoned him.
why?
Then Mabia gave her money to poison her. That's the Shia, I guess.
But did she say that to anybody that Muawiyah gave me money? No. But the Shia knew.
Shia, yeah, they know.
They know. Did she say it to anybody? No.
No, no.
So like that man who said, I saw Yazid drinking. He said to him, you either were drinking with him or you are lying.
Yeah, there's no evidence, direct evidence.
No evidence. I mean, plus there's no need to kill. The man was loyal to him.
Yes,
the man was visiting him. He wasn't preparing an army to fight him. He wasn't. Actually, when he gave up, he had an army of 100,000 men.
Yeah.
Well, he had with him, accompanying him to Syria, when he moved from Iraq to Syria to make peace with Muawiyah, he had 100,000 men. Even that number frightened Muawiyah. Muawiyah looked at it and his friends, he said, oh, these attackers, how can we stop them? Right? But Hassan knew that they were useless. So Hassan knew them very well. He said, no, whoever relies on you is a loser. That's what he used to say. Him and Ali. Whoever relies on you. Anyway, so he was no threat to him. Why would he kill him? But, it's better if he lives and he's praising him. He was praising Muawiyah. Why should he lose? Anyway, he did not kill him. And so, other than Abdullah ibn Zubayr and Al-Hussein, they did not give bay'ah to Yazid. And next week, inshallah, we'll talk about Al-Hussein and the problem of Karbala. Okay.
That's sad. That's a very sad part.
Yes. Well, we'll come to it next week, inshallah.
It depresses one